You can be starving all you want. Huh? Stop talking.
All right, thank you. I'll so stop the profanity. Plate. Oh. All right. All right, good evening and welcome to the Thursday, December 1st, Scarborough School Board Orientation. Diane, can we call attendance, please?
Sure. Miss Gammon,
Here.
Mr. Kelleher,
Here.
Miss Leong,
Here.
Mrs. Lindstrom,
Here.
Mr. Mayorino,
Here.
Ms. Tarpinian,
Here.
Ms. Trapani Huff, here, Ms. Bertulia,
Oh, she's been excused.
and Mr. Shumway.
Here.
All right, would everybody please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so welcome everybody. I think it's been a interesting couple of weeks, right, as you're getting your feet underneath you. To get started with tonight, we just have a few things I wanted to talk about as we continue to orient you. First, I do want you to know, if you remember from our last meeting, that workshops are typically the second meeting, which would be our next meeting. And what I'm hoping to be able to have for you is our attorney, our legal counsel for the district, to come and talk about the legal responsibilities of the board. It's just, we're just making sure that it works for her schedule. So it is assuming that it does, and it will, that would be our workshop next week. So you'll have one more opportunity, and it's a really, really good workshop. She's done it for us for a couple of years about what our role is in regard to executive sessions and what we can and can't do as a board, what the Freedom of Access Act means for us as board members. So she kind of covers all of that from a legal perspective, which has really been, I think, very helpful for board members. So I'm hoping she's still available. So some of the stuff we're going to talk about today, she would cover as well, but it's really, really important. So Jeff and I still included it on the agenda, and that's really understanding our role versus Jeff and Diane's role. So is there anything you, Jeff, wanted to say first about that before I start, or you want?
I think that really covers it, and just being as clear as possible about roles and responsibilities, and how we work together, you know, to govern the district.
Yeah. And we have, this is, and part of the reason when we back up and we think about our terms and the way that we were elected on, the timing of it, one of the really good things about the board moving to a June referendum is that you, well, not you, but going forward, new members would be seated at a time where they could participate in the annual school board annual meeting. So it happens every year, and it's really a good opportunity to really dive in more into your role and to network with other board members and to hear from the attorneys at Drummond Woodson about legal issues that are happening now and impacting the boards around the state of Maine. And one of the things they do a really, really good job of is they have multiple breakout sessions about board responsibilities. So Diane was gracious enough to share the materials with me, which I can forward to you if you would like to read them on your own time. But really, I remember when I came on, it was described to me as, think of us as board members, think of us sitting at like the 30,000 foot view. So our role is more the goal setting, the mission, the vision, the direction, laying out the direction we would like to see the district moving in. And then Jeff and Diane are really the boots on the ground leaders of that, of how the direction we set, right? So they're the ones that are doing the day-to-day management and taking care of the ins and outs of the district on a daily basis. And it's really, really important that we remember that differentiation, right? And kind of keep that at the forefront of our minds, especially because of course we all live here, we have kids here, we have friends here. It gets, sometimes it might seem to get easy, maybe is the way to like kind of blur that line, right? And so it's just really important that we always keep that at the forefront of the mind, what our role is versus what Jeff and Diane do. I want to be very, very clear on that. And then the board as a whole, the power that the board has is not individual power. So what that means is that I, Shannon Lindstrom, or she, Jenna Leon, we cannot go out individually, and we have no power individually. We have power as a collective body. So what that means is we vote together. And when I say together, that doesn't mean we vote in the same way. We vote on issues. We discuss issues, and whatever that decision that the full board makes as a whole, that is the decision. So what we can't do, or we don't have, is I think an issue is important, so therefore I'm going to push it forward as a board issue. That's not how this board works. So it very much is as a collective body. So when we have issues that we vote on, we have new business on the agenda, it is our opportunity to discuss it as a board, to bring any concerns forward, to really have in-depth dialogue with each other, and then make a decision collectively. So sometimes we make decisions and, we don't have 7 people who vote the same way, right? We sometimes have split votes. And at the end of the day, I find that to be, quite frankly, pretty normal and should be the case, right? We shouldn't all just be yes people all the time. But when a decision is made, when the vote is made, it's really the responsibility is with us to then kind of get behind the board decision, if that makes sense. So even if we personally voted against something, it's still important that we respect the decision of the board as it moves forward. So those are my 2 big issues. Did I forget anything, Jeff, or is there anything you want to add?
I think as part of, the materials that Diane shared around kind of that division of roles and responsibilities, kind of having the policy and vision and mission side of things. And then there's, superintendent and leadership team, recommending and implementing the policy, right? And that distinction. And then there's a quote that I think is used often that I think is really good. Just in terms of that division, where there's a line, right? So a board is not, a board member or a school board is not designed to operate the schools, is to ensure that they are well operated. If that makes sense, or well run, right?
Yeah.
So that distinction is an important, I think.
Yeah,
Can I ask a question?
of course. Yeah.
When you were talking, just what you were talking about, Jeff, and you were talking earlier, where did the committee work?
Mhm.
Is that considered visionary trend goal setting, or is that boots on the ground, getting stuff done? I haven't participated in a committee yet, so I'm not sure how it
Yeah.
all flows together.
Right. So the committee work is really how we as a board ensure that that we are operating functionally, right? So still at that higher level, still at that 30,000 foot view, but that I think where I really appreciate that we have our admin sit in on those committees, because then you get the perspective of those that are doing the work and implementing the work that we're trying to set forth. So they really are good guiders of the work that the committee does. So for example, I might have in policy, for example, I might have a line of thought that I think through, I talk out loud, and Diane or Jeff might say, that's not going to work, and here's why I think it won't work, right? So they really are, they kind of can guide our work, but it is still us at the visionary level. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and like with the finance committee meetings, for example, like you're going to go a lot more in depth as a finance committee about whatever part, wherever you are in the budget process. And then you're going to then you're able to then bring that information to the full board, you know, as we're getting close to whether it's, you know, looking at what we're bringing forward as a leadership team in terms of building based and then district wide budget, you know, wherever we are in that process. A lot more specific work can get done during those committee meetings, and then that gets brought to the full board.
Yeah. Yeah, and so oftentimes, like to that point, what happens is the committee makes a recommendation and to the full board. This is what the committee would recommend for action, right? And then the full board would discuss it and then can vote on it. So yeah, the committee work is super important. And really the interesting thing I think we have right now, and I can't wait to see it play out, is that we have this extended stretch where we don't turn over committees, right? So it's going to be a year plus, right, before we turn over a committee again, which actually is pretty exciting, so that you get, you know, we have people that have this longer period to get work done. So I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be cool. All right, so a couple of other things with the board, just with the ethical side of working on the board. We do make decisions that are difficult, as I know, I'm sure you watched some of the things. I mean, COVID was an incredibly difficult time for the district, for our students, our parents. And when we make decisions like that are, well, any decision we make really, it's we represent the entire district. So keeping that at the forefront of your mind to make decisions is really, I find it to be very useful. Just so really what I don't do is what is the decision that's going to be best for my family or my friends or my, you know, whomever I'm impacted by, but it's really an entire district holistic view. And when we do that, when I say that we don't always all vote, it's not always a 7-0 vote, right? There are times where we don't agree, and being really open to hearing everybody's ideas and encouraging that open dialogue is incredibly important, so that everybody has a voice at the table and nobody feels like they don't, right? So it's really important that we encourage that with each other, and we make the space safe so that everybody feels like they can have a word and a say. All right. John, if you have anything, you just always hop in, okay?
Yes, I'm the guy that says so moved. Just remember that.
That definitely seems to be his role. Diane, am I missing anything?
No, you're doing great. And again, like
Thank you.
the materials that I provided to Shannon were from the Maine School Management School Board workshop that happened in October. So every year, that's an annual conference that happens. And so board members are invited, and superintendents and assistants. And so I work really hard to make sure that I call all the resources together and bring them back and say, what can we use here?
Right.
Yeah, it's a super effective conference because it's sending that message that it's a critical collaboration, right? And so so it's that opportunity too for I think school board members, and then also superintendents and administrators to do that, to talk about, you know, how we want to run the district, and then again have those roles outlined. Good.
The other two pieces that I find likely the most challenging, I think that's the word I'll use, and it's really important to remember our role, is with social media and with complaints from the public. So what will inevitably happen is, now you're a board member and your friends, your family, people in the community will come to you because they think you, Carolyn, or you, Freyla, or you, Jillian, can solve it. And remember, it goes back to the idea that our power is as a board, right? So there's not one person that can solve anything for anybody. So when this happens, when there are people that come to you with complaints or concerns or issues they would like to share, it's really, really important we follow our district policy about that, which we have one lined out as KEB. And that's very specific guidelines for what people should follow when they have something they would like to share, concern that they would like to share. And it's essentially the idea that we solve things at the lowest level, right? So it starts with the person that you have the concern with, and then it moves up if it needs to, then it continues up. But it's really important we follow that and we kind of keep that in mind, because it will happen. It's the nature of the role, of course. And then social media, kind of the same, just being mindful as to what you post and where you post, and remembering that when you are using your social media page, that you are representing yourself and not the school board. It's and making the indication, that what you're saying or what you're posting is from you, right? Versus as a representative here. I find the first to be more. I don't find the social media to be difficult, but I do find the first one to be a little bit more challenging, just because people, and the more you're out and about, the more people will talk to you about things happening. So it's important that we follow our policies. I am, my view on it is that it's really important that we follow our policies, because we ask our staff members to follow our policies, and we ask the public to follow the policies. And so if we're not doing it consistently, and we also ask our committee members, quite frankly, to follow our policies as well. And if we're not doing it consistently, it's very hard to then ask somebody else to do it. And all of that, the reason all of that is important is just because it creates a trust in the community that we are being transparent and we are doing things as we should be, versus hiding anything or keeping things closed off. And I think the previous board before us, and even the board before that, has done a lot of work to really have the community trust us. And so I would like us to continue to have that trust with the community, so that they understand we're doing things because we think it's good for the entire community. And we're doing that in an open way, even when the community might not agree with a decision we've made or something we've said. It's still all out in the open for them to see, versus behind closed doors. Makes sense?
I want to throw something in about the social media.
Yeah.
Speaking from personal experience, just stay away from it as far as you can. Don't get involved in issues online, because even when you think you're just giving your input, it turns out that it can come back to be like something, oh, well, that's something the board would have to, they would be involved in. And now you've put your opinion out there, and then people will jump all over you. And even if what you put out there doesn't necessarily represent what you would do going forward, it's just your opinion. Believe me, it's just much easier to just stay away from it than to get involved and then find out that, oh God, I've said something, now I have to take it down, or I have to backtrack or explain myself. It's better to just keep those thoughts in your head and just don't even put it out there. Believe me, I've done it. And you don't want getting a message from somebody else and say, John, you can't do that. You can't say that. You can't write that. I'm like, what? Just stay away from it. Run as fast as you can away from it.
Not speaking from personal experience or anything.
No, absolutely personal experience. I'm telling you. It's things that you think that you are harmless. Somebody will find a way to twist it and turn it and do whatever. I just recommend staying away from it altogether.
Yeah, and I think I remember Jeff and I having a conversation last year, like when I was first the chair, and I was telling him something. We were just chatting about something that my son had said, and I remember I said, I'm just going to write as a parent. And Jeff, was very clear, like, you have to understand, it's very hard to separate. Like, sure, we have absolute rights to write as a parent, right? But to think that we can separate the two is very, right. It doesn't exactly work that way, right? So I think to John's point, like John Kelleher might be posting something that he thinks is indicative of his thoughts, but really it's hard to separate those two. John Kelleher from John Kelleher, school board member, right? It's very difficult to separate the two for the public and for staff.
And especially in the moms group. Watch out in the moms group. And I am in the moms group, I'm telling you, but it's freaking crazy. Those moms, whoa!
We are mama bears.
Absolutely.
I think that just shows, in this town, there are a lot of very charged up people. So whatever you do post, they're looking. Pay attention.
I think we do have a very active and involved community, which is really, it's a great thing. It's great to have that. And then the flip side, sometimes you're like, wow, it's really, I think I look around sometimes, even from where I moved from, I'm like, gosh, I've never seen people so invested in what's happening in the school before. So it's really a blessing, but it does give us that opportunity, or it should give us that opportunity to pause before, right, speaking in public.
Oh, you can say it. Crazy. I knew you were going to say crazy.
I was not.
Yeah, well, I was thinking it for sure.
Yeah, so, yeah, just something to, and Melissa will talk about that, like I said, more with the legal ramifications, but it is something to just kind of be mindful of now. Like now that it's starting, I'm sure if it hasn't already happened, it will start happening, or people will start talking to you. But more. All right, are there any questions? Any other questions on that? Anything I missed that we should have? All right. So typically right now, we would be doing goal setting. So I was thinking, and really looking at our board protocols and kind of seeing if we needed to make any adjustments. So as I was thinking through our new terms and the way this is going to shift, we're in this again, like in this in-between period. But I was thinking to align ourselves better. What if we wanted to have a conversation about waiting until June to set new goals, which will align with our new terms going forward, right? Like June on. So if you are okay with it, or we certainly open it up for discussion, I would suggest we hold off on the goals and the protocols until then. And what we can do now is go over what we, the previous board set for goals, and we can kind of see how we feel about that. And if that's where we want to just keep those intact until June, or do we want to relook at them now and then potentially relook at them again in June? So I'm just kind of looking to see what you
When
guys
did the
think.
last update come?
This time last year.
I think
Well,
we
remember,
should-
it took us a little while. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
It took us maybe until January.
I think we should take a look at it again.
Take a look
Because
at it.
new people, we need to make sure everyone's on board with everything there.
If we've made good progress on those goals, might be good to set new goals, and then you have a little extra
Mhm.
time to. You can get ambitious,
Yeah.
and tackle some big stuff, if there's anything out there.
I'm just looking for where I last put the goals. Yeah, so we had 3 pretty big goals last year. We had, I say last year, we set them up last year to go into this year. Let me share this with everybody, this document. I always copy you on via emails. Now I just realized I don't need to do that. Yeah. All right, so just forwarded it to everyone. This is the one we, these are the goals we came up with. So like I said, it probably was January of this year when we actually got them done. So it'll likely take us, a good amount of time as well to work on this, but our first one was to promote and grow a district-wide culture of trust, inclusion, and in collaboration. And then we had 7 action steps under that. So, things like annual review of the school governance structure, host 2 staff and student-centered workshops annually. The way we did that was we've had that very similar to what you'll see tonight. We had student presentations that were part of our board meetings. What we have not done is actually done student-centered where we invited students in to talk at a workshop. So that's one thing we could, if we wanted to keep this, that we could probably work on. We have invited staff in to do an IT workshop. We've had Monique come in and do test results in a workshop. So we have had the staff side, but having the students come and present at a workshop, we haven't done. And like I said, mainly because we do bring kids in every quarter to talk about athletes in every quarter to talk about it. And then we have Colby and Yulia who do a good job once a month talking about what's happening for the kids. So that's something we can maybe look at if we keep this goal. We did restart the Staff Spotlight Award, and that has been really incredible. So that will be awarded next board meeting. So it's once a month. The communications committee works on that, and it's really great. We were in a pause because of COVID. And so we've just started that back up. So we've awarded 2 now. And so you saw last week's with, which was really special. And I think that they've gotten Jillian and Jenna and Kristen on the communications committee has received a lot of applications, and there's a lot of interest in it. And Jeff has indicated that the staff really like it. So it's been a really good thing that we've brought back. So that's there. We were improving the feedback loop with the staff, the board committees. Should have been discussing that. Continuing the feedback cycle for staff to engage throughout the budget process. That I think we do a pretty good job at. We do board work, finance workshops with staff and that are well attended. The town charter review has been done. So reviewing those finance policies is something that finance can take up next. And we have continued the DEI subcommittee. We have made some changes there to align with current practice and laws, state laws. So that committee is now chaired by committee member, a school staff member, and a student. So we no longer chair that committee, but we're active participants on it. Right. The second goal was to continue to collaborate with town council to align the school growth needs with other town department expansion or development projects. So this is all really, we're talking about making sure the budget process runs smoothly. We've been very fortunate that the budget has passed the last, I think 5 years. I think 5 years that it's passed without having to go through multiple votes. It's passed on the first time. So to continue that process, establishing a plan to collaborate with the town council to advance the new school. So Jeff and Jillian and Kristen have worked really hard on that, involving town councilors, inviting them to the table. So we have town councilors now that sit on that committee, inviting Tom to sit on that committee. Jeff's worked really closely with Tom Hall to develop a relationship. So that I think is moving forward really well. And then the communication plan for that is in process. The communication team for the building has been established, and they are starting to work with Harriman on really developing a good, strong communication plan for the school.
Full page leader ad going in. Just send it over. That's right. Today.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
exciting.
great. Exciting.
That is really exciting.
It's gonna be stuff every other leader.
Every other week,
Every
right?
other week.
Mhm.
There's gonna be something about the school project. That's the goal.
Which is really good. You heard the feedback at our workshop with town council, that making sure that we're engaging the parts of the community that don't have students, right? So don't really know what's happening with the school board, or I'm sorry, the school building. So
Is there any thought about reaching out to them more on an individual basis, like going to retirement communities in the area and other groups that are really well organized, like
yeah.
thinking about it as sort of thinking about a persuasive campaign in order to get a project that needs to be voted through the electoral process, and looking at the groups that are not naturally interested in it and maybe naturally be opposed to pieces of it.
Mhm.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
So the communications committee has a very strategic plan, moving forward about, involving, different stakeholders in the community, doing, ground campaign, mailing campaign. And we have discussed, going to larger communities like that, like, there's Piper Shores.
Mhm.
Those folks love to have people come down. There's a few other communities that may like to have us come and do a presentation. And there will be some work done on that.
It's fantastic.
Some of them may be open to a little field trips. You can see the.
Well, that's challenging.
That's true. I'm gonna say, I see those little buses at. Haverford. Having to get there.
Well,
That's right.
Schools in session, but
Yeah.
It's really
It's
hard
Get
to have
everybody in.
Yeah,
a
Mhm.
bunch of people wandering around the school,
Yeah, that's true.
getting some clearance through Raptor.
Yeah.
That sounds like.
Oh, yeah, that's. No, you have a good.
It's all been discussed,
Mhm.
but it's like, keep bringing the ideas.
Yeah.
Because, you never know when.
And is
Sounds
the
really-
dollar amount gonna be out there
Mhm.
sooner rather than later? If it's not already, like in the paper.
Uh, There
The
has,
longer we wait on that.
there has been a number entered into the oh, come on, capital, yeah,
Capital Reserve Fund.
yeah.
That's just at the
that's a-
town level, but I don't know how many people see that or know that.
Gosh, I can't remember what we have discussed about that,
I mean, it's on the slides on the webpage. I mean, it's out there, it's public. I mean,
Yeah, no, I'm just
the
thinking
number,
for all the people, we're just. all
yeah,
the People who don't look at that. I think that's probably gonna be like the big,
Sticker shock.
the sticker shock. And so
Yeah.
the sooner we can get them over the sticker shock and get them into the whys. I think holding off on the sticker shock might work against us. I guess is my own thought.
No, I agree with you. It gives us more time to work with whatever that base is that kind of feels opposed to that, right? And I actually think that's a lot of what the town council was saying in that
Mhm.
workshop,
Mhm.
is they want us to start having those conversations sooner for us to gain their support. That's kind of the takeaway that I had from it is, hey, I'm not hearing that you're getting to this community just yet. So I think, a lot of people are saying it's hard to find them, right? It's very easy to find those families that are close knit. Everybody knows, just with a close knit school district and town, if you have kids involved, everybody knows about it. That was something that was in that same meeting brought up a couple times, but what about the people who don't have kids anymore? And it's, I think to Fraila's point, I was thinking along the same lines, you go to them,
Mhm.
right? Rather than waiting for them to come to you, because they probably won't, right? And then it could be too late at that point. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a bigger discussion, but I
Yeah.
think
We
it's.
can assign you a neighborhood.
Well.
Yeah, see.
Chad and I live in the same neighborhood, so we'll split.
We'll have an ice cream social and invite everybody over.
Whatever works.
Yeah, and it's hard because the committee, the building steering committee has done a lot of work about getting out there and being at things, but yeah, it's football games, it's things happening around the schools. They did go to the voting day, so there's a table at the voting booth, which was really good. I worked at it for 2 hours and there's a lot of conversation that I have with people who were like, oh, what's this? And it's the people without kids who just aren't in the know, right? Because they don't have that attachment to the district like that. So
Yeah, and it's like, there's
Mhm.
really important details, like why don't we just expand?
Mhm,
You know,
mhm,
I'm excited to read the paper.
mhm. Yeah. So that will, I almost think that goal becomes even bigger because this is the year we go to referendum, right? So this is gonna be a really an all hands on deck, not just one committee, but really everybody really, really working this. So that will be huge.
That might be our one goal for the year.
It might be, because between now, I've been working with,
5 years.
yeah, well, that, just to get it to referendum this year.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, like, this is something that's gonna encompass
Mhm.
multiple years,
Mhm.
obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah,
A K-8, a huge K-8 impact, well, really a K-12 impact, but, you know, at least with facilities, a huge K-8 impact,
mhm,
not just a K-3.
But to that point, I think that probably should be on our goals,
mhm,
because there's a lot of people who are naysaying out there about the ability to do this. I know that the committee that's working on it and has been diligently working on it is confident that they're on time. I heard them, and they seem extremely confident and like on top of their stuff.
mhm.
But you have a lot of people who also are important and influential and who have a lot of knowledge, who are very doubtful.
Mhm,
So if it's a full court press and it is everybody, like that should be on our goals.
mhm, absolutely.
That should be maybe the biggest goal.
Yeah, that, I think so too. I think it is too. I think this year is going to be, in my mind, really focused around this. And likely we have to drop off some other things to really stay focused on that. John Anderson and I are in communications about, doing bi-monthly, no, that's not right, every other month, not bi-monthly, every other month workshops between now and July. July is when they make the decision if it goes on the ballot or not. So his, initially, when we talked about it, his thought is that we switch off and on. So 1 month it would be a town council workshop, 1 month it would be a school board workshop. So I pass that information on to Harriman. At our next meeting, we will have an executive session where I've invited the counselors and Tom Hall to attend. And that is where the whole board will hear, as well as the counselors will hear about the site selection process. So that will occur next, and that'll be our next time we meet with them. So that'll be at the next meeting. Here.
When we were in the joint meeting with the town council, like I saw several different potential designs.
Mhm.
And so does the design depend on the location?
Correct.
Okay, that's what I was wondering, because it was making me nervous. I'm like, we don't have a design, and how are we gonna know? How are we gonna know in time how much everything's gonna cost? But so depending on the size, we've got it narrowed down to certain designs, and
Right.
we'll know a cost.
Well, and you heard that from some of the counselors, right? Like, it's hard without a site.
Yeah.
To really have this be, okay, this is real.
Mhm.
I know what this is. I know potentially where it's gonna go.
Yeah.
And obviously that's gonna impact, you know, how, you know, design choices and what you can do and not do, right?
Right, so the
Yes.
pieces that we've been able to work on now are like the components of the programmatic notebook, right? So regardless of where the school lands, what are the educational needs that we have for it? What are how many classrooms is it gonna need? How many, all of the different spaces.
Yeah.
So we've been working through all of those details, and then once we're able to match that up with a location and figure out, what kind of building can we seat on that site, we already have our programmatic needs, then everything will really become, pretty clear pretty quickly,
Okay. Good.
right? Because we already have a working context for what our needs are, and we're building this building based on that. So I think things will start
makes
coming together
sense.
once we can, say, here's the site. And I think from a community standpoint, once it all becomes concrete, then that's where the conversations really become real.
Yeah, and my bet would be that's when things are really would start to accelerate.
Yeah.
Just in
Mhm.
terms of that awareness and, you know, urgency and like, okay, this is now I know what I'm voting on. Now, and, you know, and it would just, I think it's gonna bring a lot of, you know, to Diane's, it's real now, right? And it's like, you can see it, you know, where it's going and.
I mean, because right now, even the cost
Bring
of the
clarity.
project, that is just a gross estimate, right?
Exactly.
Because,
Mhm.
you know, we have no, you know, until we enter into a contract with someone, we have no idea how much is the land going to cost, et cetera, right? So all of those pieces will come together in a similar time frame.
Was there, I know there's been so many surveys sent out and things prior to our time of joining the board. I'm just thinking, going into the site selection piece of that, was the community ever surveyed to find out like where they would prefer to see? Not, obviously you can't tell them what you're potentially bidding on, but
Right.
like location wise, because and I'm just thinking this out loud because I'm thinking there could be community members that are full gung ho in support and potentially we lose them, or those that are on the fence and potentially we win them over just based on the site. So I'm just curious if that was ever.
There has been with it, so we've had some, we had at least
Several
two,
open forums.
I mean, we had several open community forums. And at least two of them had a site selection interactive piece to that.
Cool.
Where, you know, you're looking at, okay, you're asking the questions and then also introducing the public to the process of selecting a site, like how you go through that entire process.
Like, what are the
and then-
key criteria that
Right,
you
what
want
are
the
the-
site to have?
and
Right, and
where
then rank
and-
ordering those and prioritizing those. And
Yeah.
then putting those out, you know, to the folks that we were working with, you know.
Yeah, and
for
the
lead
challenge,
acquisition.
the challenge was getting people to the forums,
Mhm.
you know, what I mean? And getting that public participation and.
They intend on having some sort of gauge.
A straw poll.
Yeah, straw poll.
Yes,
We're
yeah, there'll be a straw
Yeah.
poll for the site. And that's on that schedule.
Yeah.
Timeline that Airman put out a
Yeah.
couple weeks ago.
Yeah, and it's difficult too, because as Diane, like when you put out your needs and your desires, right? And you look at, one of those would be like not having well service, right? So we have to be very mindful of that and the impacts to the school. And so then when you look at Scarborough as a whole, how many properties does that take off the table, right? And so it becomes this, like you start big and then as you start narrowing down and narrowing down and narrowing down, that's where you get to like those few left that you're considering. Which I imagine in our next meeting, I imagine, Lisa might go into that somewhat, maybe not as full depth, right? But she'll probably cover some of it to kind of give everybody an idea
Yeah.
about where it is. Yeah, so, yeah, I do imagine this, I do agree, Fraley. I think this is probably our biggest, goal and will take the most of our time this year. And then, to your point, I think that changes next year. It's still a huge goal, right? If it's on the ballot and it passes referendum, now we have a new set of goals, right? Around that and getting into the building and the work that comes with it there. Our third goal is related to student success and achievement. We did expand on this a little bit last year and included social emotional learning as we came out of COVID, of course, and trying to be sure that our students all felt supported from, you know, as they returned, and then also from looking at our DEI work that's happening district-wide. So some of these steps that we're working on was establishing, not us, but admin was working on establishing a baseline to determine those benchmarks. One thing that we didn't do last year that we had talked about at the end of June. So June is an interesting time and will continue to be an interesting time. We do the superintendent evaluation, we set the superintendent goals, and now we'll also set our goals and our protocols. So June will end up being a pretty busy month, but and then electing new board members. So there'll be a lot in the future happening in June. But one of the things we had talked about, like really making sure we focused on, is that quarterly progress on academic progress reports. So just hearing how the district is doing in relation to benchmarks that are set, and how our district is performing, essentially, like a performance report.
And just so the board is aware, the DOE is making the job of doing that infinitely harder in terms of giving us data around how kids are doing that are actually normed to the standards and all that kind of thing. And if I even bring it up with Monique, I have to start talking to Kirsty so I can start throwing things. But so
Are they
What's that?
changing all the systems like that?
well, they're just they're not aligning how kids are doing on the own MEA assessments with, they're not giving us kind of valid data so that we can track growth for kids. It's just like every year the tests are different and they're not normed in a way where you can longitudinally, at least credibly, track progress. So it just makes it very challenging for us to do that. I mean, we have, our own internal measures that we've been using and will continue to use, but it's just a challenge. I just mentioned that.
And is that driven by DOE policy and DOE guidelines, or sort of what tests that they're promulgating essentially are making you guys give out?
Oh, geez. It's driven by just, I think, a lot of interesting decision-making around
Politics.
how do you want to be able to credibly track academic progress, when you're A, changing the assessment on a yearly basis, and then B, not being able to settle on norming procedures where you're measuring apples to apples, right?
They're gonna validate.
Yeah, so it's a challenge.
We got our MEA home yesterday and my husband called me, he's like, what does this mean? He's like, is it compared to other kids in our son's class, or is it compared to the school, or is it compared to the state? And then just got me thinking, I wonder if this is like a great opportunity for something in the paper. Hey, look, here's how our school is doing, but if we knew what we're comparing against,
Right, and so the struggle is they can't come to consensus or even basically like, where is that line, right?
Yeah.
So you can start categorizing, this meets standard, this doesn't meet, even getting to that level hasn't been determined.
and you say that Scarborough
So they're
kids
just
are
not
at
really-
like, on average, like in the 15th percentile on math, and state is that. I'm making numbers up.
No, right, and that's the thing, when you haven't decided where those percentiles fall, and then what do you judge as meeting standard or exceeding standards, all those kind of things. There's just not a valid rubric to measure against from one year to the next.
So does it
So that
almost
just makes it
become,
challenging to measure how you're doing.
so does it almost become like, if we, talk about this reported quarterly progress, does it almost make sense to talk about just comparing it to our numbers for now, or our internal metrics
Right.
versus worrying about the state until the state figures out what
Right.
how they're going to report it?
Or, I also think about like, what are the indicators that we have here locally aside from the state measures, right? Like,
Yeah.
what do we know about our failure rates or, student progress and those types of measures? I think those are things that we could probably more easily talk about because we're in control of those pieces, right?
Right, you're not relying on someone else.
Yeah,
That's what we always had to do. So when I was teaching back in Massachusetts, it doesn't change. So it's the
Right.
same here as it is there. I mean, state to state, it really, as a teacher, that was always one of our most frustrating things is we were constantly changing every year what we're being assessed on as an educator. And we're like, well, how do we create consistency for these kids in the classroom? Because there's no consistency for us as teachers in terms of what bar are we supposed to measure on? So, one of my favorite school districts that I worked for, I felt like they really understood the local level and they kept it within, like, we knew we had to report things, to the state, but we had those metrics that you guys are discussing about. And I think it it helped us to actually communicate with parents more so than even, I mean, it was helpful for us, but I think for parents and then for students, you could help create a story for, well, here's why you have to learn this year, because next year, this is what's coming for you, instead of, the state tells us this, and that might
Yeah.
change next year.
Yeah, and the challenge in Maine, at least for like the last 6, 8 years, I mean, if you have like high schoolers now, when they started, taking the MEAs when they're in third, I mean, there's the kneecaps, there's a smarter balance, there was like, and then there's measured progress, and then there's measured progress version 2, and it's like, I mean, and then MEA, so it's like the actual format and how they're asking questions, and then how they're measuring. I mean, you try to longitudinally say, okay, this is how my kid did in ELA on through the grades, and it's like, oh, I mean, it's very difficult to do that in a credible way, but.
And I think the other thing is like, understanding that when you're looking at those state assessments, those really are for the means of comparison. They're not for making instructional change with students, right? Because by the time you as parents receive that state assessment data, it's 6 months old, right? And so your student isn't even at that place anymore. And the same for teachers, right? Like if teachers aren't getting that state assessment feedback in a timely way, it's not helping them to make instructional decisions for kids. So the more that we can dig into our local data measures and, ask each other, like, what do we have that helps us to know how our kids are doing on a daily basis? That's where we're going to really impact change for our kids.
Yeah, and the frustration from, my point of view, and I think, Diane and Monique and then the board as well, is that there's another layer to that, and that's how are you making systemic or larger decisions around curriculum or where to focus, or are our kids struggling in writing, for example? So do we want to, implement a more effective writing program at different levels, or, you know what I mean? And it's harder to make those determinations when you can't, because some of the larger summative assessments can tell you how you're doing, not just kid by kid, but also, systemically.
Yeah, and Monique was talking about this in regards to last year when we made these goals because of COVID. It kind of, we wanted to put an emphasis on it so that we could try to figure it out. Because there was also a period where they didn't test.
Yeah.
So there was not enough data to kind of figure it out. You're trying to figure out this jigsaw puzzle that's all mixed in between. So that was, I think that's where our focus was when we made that particular goal, just to try to get something, like we're talking baseline, something that we can work around, so we know we have a frame of reference to go back to.
Yeah. Yeah, so maybe, maybe then we think about like our January workshop, maybe being goal setting. So that'll give everybody time to look through and kind of wrap your head around what we have now. The protocols are on our website, and essentially they talk about our the way we operate. It's on our about page. And there are 13 of them. So it is with the idea of a cooperative team environment and team spirit and how we will operate in that function, in that capacity. So the biggest one I think you probably have seen so far in there, just by virtue of the emails you've received, is that our board operating protocol is that the board chair will respond to all communication that comes in on behalf of the board. There are times where if, for example, somebody writes in with a question that's very specific to the building steering committee, I might reach out to prior to, I might have reached out to Jillian and Kristen and said, do you want to handle answering this? So there are times like that, but generally speaking, I would be the one to respond on our behalf to everybody. Also, what has happened, not too terribly often, but what has happened on occasion is that a community member will write in and a board member will feel compelled to answer, to want to respond to it. And so they might ask me, hey, is it okay if I have a response here? And generally I think I've been asked twice. So, and I've allowed once and I've allowed it. So generally speaking, that happened. That's not the norm, but it has happened.
So when we get phone calls, maybe this is to what you were talking about earlier, if and when we get phone calls, should we say refer them to you, or do you have that protocol?
I would go through the protocol. So I always ask when people call me or whatever, I always say, did you go to the person? And if their answer is no, that's where you always send them first. And oftentimes, depending on I kind of like see where the conversation goes, depending on how serious I think somebody is about it. I then say, this is, we have this board policy, this is what the policy letters, if you want to look it up, this is our procedure for handling those things. So instead of it coming, now, having said that, if somebody writes me because I've had this happen before as well, somebody essentially writes out their full complaint to me, like copies and pastes the email in a text message to me. And so when I have access to the full thing, when it's out of the procedure, I have actually forwarded it to the full board, because we should all be in receipt of the same information, right? I shouldn't have anything that you don't have. So but that's not the norm.
Right, so you make a good point that if anyone on the board were to receive an email communication from someone, they should forward that to the rest of the board.
Yes.
So that you're not engaging in any, private email conversations as a board member without the knowledge of the full board, right? Because as Shannon led with tonight, your capacity is as a full board, not as individuals.
Yeah. Last year, my kid found me in his email system at school, tell me that I was ruining his life. So.
Forward that to the full board.
Mom, I was just asking what the food was for dinner tonight.
No, I told him he was like misusing the computer. I told him I approved him. I don't know. It was just.
It was really amazing. That's what it was.
Right. Yeah, I think
That's funny.
that one went in the memory book.
Yeah.
Little civic lesson
I
for
think
the day.
going back to phone with others, I think you're always going to be having conversations with the public. So it's just a matter of like, okay, letting them know, I've heard your concern. If you can't really talk about it, you have to talk about it publicly. Letting them know, I can't talk about it right now, but I can bring it to the board and we'll discuss it. And that usually is sufficient enough to say like, okay, got it. I'm not allowed to say anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, and one way that actually Jeff and I had recently had a conversation with Melissa, and one way that to think about it that I thought was really insightful is that now that we're board members, really you're talking about people that are employed by the district, right? That report to Jeff. And so these are our employees. So you have to be very mindful of how you speak about employees. And we know that in the workplace, right? But sometimes we forget in this role that that's what we're talking about. So, yeah, so I always, emails that come in, and I think outside of the "you're ruining my life" email, I think on a few occasions, they've gone to one board member, and then whomever receives it just forwards it to the full board. And then I'll respond if it's necessary. Yeah, it's not, yeah.
I have 4 teenagers. That's the 5th time I've heard that today.
Yeah.
So if you think you're shaking me on that one,
Yeah.
try again.
Oh, my goodness. All right, so we'll work on that then in January. And then the other thing, so I told you workshops were monthly. Some of them will be driven by the school building, right? So I mentioned that we'll host half of them and town council will hold half of them, but that will just be between now and June. But we have other workshops that we can fill. So if there's something that you're interested in learning more about, if there's a topic you think would be good for the full board to hear, certainly send your ideas in, because I kind of keep a running list, and then we can fill out the calendar as we go.
Our workshops open to public attendance.
Yeah. I know, I know, but yes. Yeah, they,
A lot
Yeah.
of people, and when they want to catch up, they can go online and they rewatch it after.
Yeah.
Right, they
Yeah.
continue to be
Yeah.
archived. So many people are having dinner right now, not able to watch live.
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. It's like-
Yeah.
Watch.
All right. All right, so with our last like 15 minutes that we have time, because this will fill up rather quickly. Probably likely before even 7 o'clock starts. I really want to take a minute and talk about the committee roles. So we're going live with, I mean, everybody knows their assignments, but they will go out tonight for the public to see. So I just wanted to be sure that everybody understood at least the chair's responsibility, because everybody is chairing at least one committee. So in your notebook, there is a sheet, it's a committee meeting to-do list. And it really talks about everything to keep in mind. So the biggest thing, I told you, I kind of feel very strongly about following our policies. The biggest thing is that we have to be very mindful about giving the public proper notice. Proper notice is 3 days prior, 3 business days prior to the committee meeting. So if your meeting, for example, is on a Thursday, Monday is the absolute latest you should be sending something to Kelly to post. Kelly does all of that work for us, but I would be mindful that Kelly also has a large part of her job that does not, majority of her job that doesn't involve catering to our needs. So please don't wait until the last minute to send stuff to her. So just keep that in mind. The 3 business days is really and it's not a suggestion. It is in our policy. It is something we have to follow. So, notice means that you send Kelly the agenda you've written and she posts that. If you need, if you were doing a hybrid meeting, so partially Zoom, partially in person, if you're doing a full Zoom meeting, Kelly would also be the person who sets that up for you. All right. So you kind of, what your first, after tonight, after our committees are formed, your first thing would, as a board chair, would kind of get with the rest of your committee members. So that includes your 2 other board members and then your admin person, and really try to find a day and a time that works for all of you. Because what works best for admin, but likely works best for everybody, is that it's the same day, the same time every month. So it's not like in January, we're meeting on Mondays and in February, we're going to Tuesdays, but it's kind of that same, like, first Monday of the month at 11 o'clock, we're gonna meet. Whatever works for your committee, because that, for their schedules, that's much easier. And probably, like I said, likely for ours as well.
Just the predictability of knowing that.
And it's helpful for the public, right?
Yeah.
So if the
Mhm.
public is interested in the finance committee and they know that it happens on the 3rd Thursday of every month, people in the public can also plan for that.
Right. So on this sheet, I kind of gave you like 7 days out within, and then after that, like what we should do. So I gave you that 7 days out is when we send Kelly the information, because then it's not left. If we have the same day and time every month, it should be fairly easy, right? To get in that habit of getting the agendas over to Kelly and then getting them to the rest of your committee members. And then the other piece of that transparency and that bringing the public along is the meeting minutes from your committee meeting. So within 7 days after, we should be able to get those meeting minutes to Kelly to post on the website. So all of that, just like when I know Fraley, you did it when you were running, you really watched and read and the meetings and read the documents out there. That's why all of that is there, right? So anybody from the public can go and pick that up. So as the committee chair, what you do is you call the meeting to order. You ask for a note taker and you ask for a timekeeper to kind of keep you on track with the meeting. You lead those topic discussions. So whatever you put on your agenda, you're the one that's really leading those conversations. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, someone's, I was just waving that.
Oh, yeah. No problem. We'll be with you in just a moment. You assign the next action steps. So what are you going to do going forward? You know, what is our next steps going out after this meeting? And then you confirm that next scheduled meeting. So that's what happens at every single meeting. So there's certain things like the communications committee. We're trying to, Jillian and I talked last night at length about how we can make sure that the communications committee is really functioning well. And part of that is asking the committees to write articles that would help that they can post on behalf of the school board, so that the onus and that responsibility just doesn't fall on communications, kind of on all of us. And then for policy, like, for example, one of the examples I gave Jillian is policy. Diane had this really great idea to have like a box every month where the policy chair says, these are the policies we're going to review at this month's board meeting or this month's committee meeting, right? So then the public knows right off the bat, these are the things that the policy committee is looking at.
We can publish that in our district newsletter.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's an example. Or if the building steering committee, for example, had something they wanted to include in the district newsletter, we would ask them to write it and submit it to Jillian and submit it to the communications committee. So
We've made like social media posts too,
mhm.
for specific topics that we want people to tune in to watch for also. So if there's anything like that, just tell us.
Yeah.
And this is a stupid question, I think, but like the
Nothing's a
committee,
stupid question.
the communications committee, I assume is control of social media. Like, I assume you guys run that also. Like, that would make
We
sense to
only,
me.
Jillian only just got recently
yeah.
some Facebook breaks there.
Yep.
Awesome. I just wanted like that's like when you say social media, you're talking about that. We'll get that out.
Yeah, and then Jeff and Diane also run it from,
And they
Yeah,
author
school
the
site.
Friday newsletters.
Yeah.
I learned.
yeah.
Yeah.
She's her. Yeah. She does
Yeah,
it
I'm
all.
like amazed by that.
Joint efforts.
So it's important that we communicate for that transparency piece, but it's also, I thought someone else came in. But we also have to help out, right? It's a huge lift. And the communications committee is also working on that Spotlight Award. So they're reviewing those applications and getting that communication out to the winners. And that's work as well. So that committee is pretty active. And so as much as we can help, it's important that we do.
If you write anything also, just send it to everyone and everyone can kind of edit at the same time.
Everyone on the committee or everyone on the board?
Everyone on board,
Okay.
depending on what it is
Yeah.
that you're talking about, but likely everybody on board. So everyone make sure that the information is correct.
Before this goes up.
Yeah. That correct, because budget season's right around the corner.
Yep.
So for instance, like I wrote a budget article, put it out there for everyone and everyone just went on there, just edit.
Right.
Approving whatever edits made sense and then gave them the final review. Hey, does this sound good? And they put it out there.
And do most committees have one chair or two chairs?
One.
One of my experience has been with three chairs, but that
Yeah.
committee works a little different.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
As the, yes, that one works different and building
Remember, these are
steering.
really small committees.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Very large.
yeah, that's a very large one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and building steering operates differently as well, but Dana is the only
Dana's
chair,
the
right?
only chair. There were
Yeah.
co-chairs.
Pretty
But-
amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my,
He's amazing.
he really is.
Yeah.
And he does it all.
We're very fortunate to have him.
Just a volunteer.
He's
Mhm.
one of the best speakers I've ever heard.
Oh,
Amazing.
All right, so I think we should wrap up because we have guests now, but is there any questions? I know that was a very quick about chairing the committee.
When
What-
are you expecting our first meetings to be held by?
I mean, I'm aware that we're in holiday season, so keeping that in mind, I would like to see all committees have at least started meeting by January. So again, to the best of our ability, given the timing.
And will we getting sort of the membership list of, like, if you're walking into an established committee for the first time, which I think we will be, are we gonna like learn who else is on the committee?
So
Well,
the committees are really just the
just
three
the board
board
members.
members and then the Central office rep.
Oh, that's great. Yeah,
And
well,
other people may float in and out, right? Because you could have, like, if you're doing policy committee, there may be
On
members
certain
of the
topic.
public. There might be staff that want to speak on
Mhm.
something. There might be
Yeah, like, there's
students.
only public involved. I just want to know, like, sort of, if you're gonna organize a meeting by
Mhm.
January.
Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
just among those 5 people.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's pretty simple.
That's good.
yeah.
And like, reach out. We're happy to help.
Yeah, and we have, in your book is a list of what admin works with what committee, so that will be very helpful to you. And then my goal this year, is to try to do monthly meetings with everybody, so I can help you. Where are you at? Where do you know, what's going on? Where do you need help? Just so we can help that process along as well. So I'm always there as well. And then your previous chairs, John, I know John's on the speaker, but all of us that were previously held those positions are absolutely helpful. I feel confident saying absolutely helpful. Welcome to help you kind of get yourself going.
I think we're still on.
Eh,
All right. All right. Yeah, well, it'll get more, it'll fill up.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. All right, so let's go ahead and adjourn for now and take a 10-minute break until our meeting. Sound good?
Anybody want a sandwich?
I do.
And may we have the attendance, please?
Sure. Ms. Gammon?
Here.
Mr. Kelleher?
Here.
Long? Here. Mrs. Lindstrom?
Here.
Mr. Mayorino?
Here.
Ms. Tarpinian?
Present.
Ms. Trapani Huff? Here. Ms. Bertulia?
She's been excused.
And Mr. Shumway?
All right, will everyone please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? All right, agenda item 4.0 are adjustments to the agenda. Are there any adjustments this evening?
No adjustments this evening.
Agenda item 5.0 is public comment on an agenda item. Is there anybody here wishing to make public comment? All right, check online. Seeing none, I will go ahead and close public comment. Agenda item 6.0 is the Scarborough High School Fall Sports Recognition. So for this, I'll invite Mike Legage, our athletic director, up.
Well, thank you and good evening. Real proud to introduce our coaches, and some of our student athletes are here with their coaches as well to give a little update on their fall season. just overall, I think we had a very successful fall season. We don't measure that just in wins and losses, but certainly in our participation rate and things of that nature. And we had a great fall with lots of student participation and so real happy about that and proud of our student athletes and our coaches. Let me just start right out with golf and Coach Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Legage. Folks, I just want to give a shout out to some people that really help us to have a successful season. That is Rick and Pam Lewis at Willowdale. Again, as I said last year, they donate the course and they deserve a lot of thank yous from us in the high school. The association down to Proud Snack and the Trombleys for getting us on to a unbelievable piece of property. And also to Donnie Prout at Pleasant Hill golf driving range. He allows us to come down there and on days that we can't get on at Willowdale and Prout. So I'd like to say thank you to them publicly. We had a very successful year. Regular season, we ran through the northern part of our league at 10-0. We were led by sophomore Keenan Buteau, junior Harrison Griffiths, sophomore Mark Trombley, and another junior Ryan Ravis. These four gentlemen were named all conference of SMAA. We won the SMA team championship as well. We were state runner-up. We lost to a tough Brunswick team by a total of 5 shots. But we also had the state individual champion, Mark Trombley, who shot a 3 under par, great round, one of the best rounds I've had of any kid in my 34 years of coaching here at Scarborough High. He went on to place 12th at the New Englands, and just a great season. But not only just Mark, but for the kids. These kids are, I'm very proud to have coached another quality, wonderful group of student athletes. They really represent Scarborough in the highest of honor. And I so neat to be part of seeing kids grow. And I want to thank you guys for letting me hang on again for another year. So thank you very much.
And Coach Mariello with field hockey.
How you doing? Good evening. Yeah, you would think I would have, this were the basketball team because the size of the girls here, but yeah, we had a large team. So this season we had our work cut out for us. We lost 10 to graduation last year. So we only had 5 returning starters, 8 brand new to the varsity program itself. So we knew we had to work as hard as possible, as quick as possible to get ourselves where we wanted to be, which was ultimately a top contender in the league. We finished 12-3, 8 wins in shutout fashion. Our losses were to teams that were had a lot of returning starters, well established. We finished 3rd, and we're very close to a 2nd seed. And saying that in a league that is incredibly competitive. So we outscored our opponents 57-8. And although we were stunned in the playoffs, obviously what we accomplished was phenomenal. The result was the effort of a combination of the leadership that we had, where these captains, Aiden Harris, Daisy Stone, and Anna Kavanaugh, ultimately these guys, took the young core, the young receptive core that we had. They obviously brought something to the table as well, but it was these young ladies, mature young ladies, that their leadership skills and their will to get everybody on board was great to see and awesome to see. And that's why we finished where we were. They represented with pride, integrity, the utmost honor. You start a season, every year you start a season, and ultimately you just want to be a better version of yourself, whether that's through just as individuals, as a team. And you take on the challenges and you learn the lessons, and ultimately you get the most out of the experience that you hope to get. And no doubt in my mind that these girls learned the lessons and they became better players and better people. I know myself as a coach, being a part of this season, I feel a bit like a better individual from the experiences and the lessons we learned. So I couldn't be more proud of this group, and I'm sad to see the senior group go. Very excited for them to see them shine later on, but very happy with this season for sure. So thank you for your time. Thank you for the support. Thank you.
And Coach Bowden with cheering.
Thank you, guys. I am Katrina Bowden. I'm the assistant coach for cheering at the high school. Our head coach Caitlin couldn't be here with us tonight. But I think I can speak on both of our behalfs when I say that this was a pretty good fall season for us. We started with 2 girls and ended the season with 7, which was pretty great recruiting wise. One of those included a girl from Falmouth, where they don't have a cheer program, so we were able to collaborate between the 2 schools, which was a great opportunity for the 2 communities. I also am the lead coach for the Scarborough Cheer Club, so I oversee those 4 teams as well, and we did a lot of collaboration with our high school girls and going down and doing clinics with them. So I think this was a really good opportunity for our girls to be leaders, but also to help carry over the girls who are cheering at the younger ages and to continue on through the high school. We were back out cheering at football games this year, which was really exciting for both us, and I know the crowd was really excited to have us back there. We have a lot of goals for our next season to do some stuff to get the crowd involved with cheering at football games, so we're really excited for that. But yeah, thank you guys for being here, and thank you for letting me speak.
And Coach Harmon with boys and girls cross country.
Coach Kelly couldn't be here, so he asked if I could speak on his behalf. So I'm going to start in general for both teams. First of all, thank you for having us here. It's an honor, and it's just such a pleasure working with these student athletes, as you've heard already from the coaches. This, I think, marks my 25th year. And one thing I have to say about both teams, girls and boys cross country, the other teams too, I just don't, I'm not involved with them. But just such a great group of young student athletes, their dedication to their sports, to their academics, it's just overwhelming. And I think out of my 25 years, the 2 groups especially worked so well together, supported each other, sportsmanship the whole way through. It was just really impressive. As far as again, so thank you for having us here. And as you heard earlier, it's not always about win-loss record. I think we set the bar pretty high here in Scarborough. We like to win state championships, but even when we don't, it doesn't diminish the caliber of athletes that we have, student athletes, and just incredible. Out of our 5 seniors, just to give an example, for the boys team, all 5 earned SMAA all academics for their years in high school. So 100% of our seniors. Girls, they would have, but they don't have any seniors this year. So we'll see that next year. Anyways, as far as for the girls, again, thank you. And I do want to say thank you to the boosters, parents, our athletic department. It's everyone helps out so much, and just about every day you're getting some help from one of these groups there. And of course, our administrators too are so supportive. But as far as the girls, they did have a young team this year. It consisted of 7 girls, 1 freshman, 3 sophomores, and 3 juniors. So they are a young team. They're going to keep improving throughout the season. Each one improved upon last year's times. The courses at Smiling Hill Farm, they had a couple great meets as far as their overall times at Gorham. Nice fast course. The Gorham Invitational Meet, they finished 9th out of 19 teams. And in the Festival of Champions, great big large meet. I know it's a little different from other sports. We can have up to 70 teams in one event. So you can see where you finish. And in that Festival of Champions in Belfast, they finished 29th of 55 teams. Now, in the regional meet qualifier, the team just missed qualifying for the state meet. They did have 2 runners that qualified for the state meet, Kylie Record and Rowan Driscoll. And in the state meet, Kylie finished 19th and Rowan 51st. But again, just a young team that's only going to keep improving. So great job, girls. And Colby up here, you guys, I think you all know him, but he's one of our athletes and one of our captains for next year. As far as the boys, again, we always shoot for the top. I think every one of us here, as far as sports in Scarborough, really do know we have the caliber athlete that could make it and win the state meet. So that was our goal. We were an underdog. We did graduate quite a few seniors last year. So we started out with the goal of being there. Throughout the season with those invitational meets, we were beaten by 7 teams, these big invitational meets, but defeated 85 teams. So a winning percentage of 91.8%. In the regular season meets, our SMA A meets, we only lost to 1 team, Portland, who's very strong this year and last year. Will be again next year, but we lost to them. And in SMA A meets, we defeated 13 teams. So only 1 loss there, a winning percentage of 92%. So this still wasn't our best year, but it really was still impressive. And like I said, these athletes giving 100% all season long, and just so impressive. But again, regional meet onto this championships in the regional meet, we did finish 2nd. And yes, Mr. Legage, we have a plaque for you there, but we did finish 2nd. But in the state meet, we fell a little short. We finished 7th out of about 30 teams in the states. And that was, even though it was 7th, it was only 8 points, which is not much in cross country, but 8 points out of 4th place. We did have a couple qualifiers for the New England event in Rhode Island, and that was Adam Bendenson and Nathan Driscoll both qualified for the New England meet and went to the New Englands. We had 1 athlete make all SMA A first team, Adam Bendenson, and we had 2 athletes that made all SMA A second team, and Nathan Driscoll and Ethan Keller there. Again, I think we'll come back like some of these other teams have said and look for even a stronger year, but very successful in many different ways. Thank you.
And Coach Mealy with football.
I'd first off, just like to thank the athletic administration, the Boosters Club, our parents, and of course our players, led by our captains, Griffin Denbo, Isaac Glidden, Andrew Moore, Charlie Murray, and Keegan Weed. They led a group of 17 seniors this year, which is the 2nd year we've had that big a group, which is pretty impressive. And the 2nd year in a row, we've actually had some seniors that hadn't played football in high school come out and actually contribute, which is, I think, unusual in football for a kid to not play for 3 years and then to come out and actually find his way onto a varsity field. Football is kind of a strange game like that. If you don't play for a long time, it's tough to just step out there and contribute. But they were a great group that really set the tone for the season to have a positive attitude through the ups and downs. We were an undersized team. I know that the season didn't go the way that the seniors wanted. They bounced back big after after some of our losses. We finished the season 5-5, 4th place in our league. We did get a home playoff game that unfortunately we lost by 1 point, very close game. For accolades for the season, we had 1 player make first team all Class A, 3 make all Class A defense. We had 3 make second team defense and 3 make second team offense as well. Some off the field things that we had 7 players on the all academic SMA team, which we always like to have as many guys in our senior class as we can get on that. We had 30 freshmen this year. which is probably the biggest group in any one class I've had in 20 years of coaching. So the future is bright for Scarborough football in that respect. And one thing I'd like to point out is that this year, we put a real focus on raising money for charity and have raised over $3,000 this year for charities in Southern Maine. And that's something we hope to grow in the future. Thank you.
And Coach started with volleyball.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having us back here. This is my 5th year as the head coach and 13th year coaching here in Scarborough. And I just want to point out that there's a lot of coaches here tonight that have been coaching in Scarborough for over a decade, which I think speaks a lot about the administration and just the support that athletics receives in Scarborough. So I think that's really awesome. And I know I plan on continuing as long as you'll allow me as the volleyball coach here. I love it. I have one of my captains, Julia Strauss Jr., here with me tonight. And we had another fantastic season this year as defending state champs. You go into the season with a target on your back and everyone wants to beat you, especially the team you beat the prior year. And we did graduate 8 seniors last year, but it wasn't a rebuilding year for us. We came out strong, and the players who had kind of been in the back last year really stepped up big time this year for us. We went 13-3 overall. We made it to the semifinals again this year, lost to a very tough Gorham team. So I know it didn't end the way we wanted it to, but wins and losses aren't everything, as other coaches have been saying, as otherwise, you'd lose a game and you'd be done, and that's no fun. The kids are really, really impressive and they work really hard. And one of the things that we had in volleyball this year was a lot of new players come out from freshmen through juniors, and the returning players really embrace that. And one of the things we work really hard to do is have a welcoming environment where people feel comfortable. Volleyball is a very technical and difficult sport to learn. There's a lot of moving, and you're moving, trying to hit a moving target, and it's hard to do. So making mistakes and learning from them are really important to us. And the older kids definitely embrace the newer kids. And we always combine JV and varsity for our practices in the beginning. That's really important to us. And that's part of why we've been so successful for so long. As far as recognition for some of our players, we finished 2nd in heel points this year. So we got to host a couple of playoff games. And we had 2 players named to the SMA All-Conference first team. That was sophomore Natalie Moynihan, junior Olivia Smith, and 2 players named to the SMA All-Conference second team, Alana Sawyer and Julia Strauss, both juniors. And then our 1 senior this year was our conference honorable mention and also made the all-academic team, and the senior all-star team. So 1 senior, big contributor. We'll definitely miss her, but I know next year we're definitely ready to go, and we are kind of ready to take our revenge after that tough loss in the semis. So again, thank you very much for your time tonight. Look forward to next year.
And Coach Diaz with boys soccer.
Hello. Just want to say thanks for having us. These are my captains, Ashton Blanchett, Parker Killiard, Noah Flag. Just to show you how good these guys are, I asked them to dress up, and look what I got. So that's the kind of leadership we had in the program this year. And the other seniors are pretty similar. So very, very lucky. As the other coaches said, we know how lucky we are to work here, to coach here, not just because the kids are talented. A lot of us scout, we see other teams, we go watch other teams, and I usually drive home going, I'm a pretty lucky guy. So just their behavior, they're not perfect, but we know what we have and we're fortunate. As far as our season, we had a successful season, I guess, in terms of wins. We won a bunch of games and we only lost a few. We ended up being conference champions, which is very difficult in our conference, very competitive. And we were the #1 seed. We went on to win the regional championship. And as everybody knows, we ended up losing a heartbreaker in the state championship. But they gave everything they had. I had 16 seniors, I believe, and I had 14 all academic of those 16. So pretty impressive. We do some things to try to have some fun and do some team bonding. We went bowling, which was, we didn't win any awards for that. But the person that ran the bowling alley just commented on how polite the guys were, how they cleaned up after, and just, it was good stuff in terms of that. And we also did Becky's Walk for breast cancer research, and we did that, and they were very good about participating in that. So I was really proud of them for that. I had 3 players make All-State, which is pretty difficult to do. And then they're also in line to get more awards going forward. And then I had 5 players make All-Conference. So overall, it was a great season. And as the other coaches said, you want to win all the time, but in the end, it's about the journey. And this group is just very special. We just tried to have some fun. We tried to work on development and on and off the field, and it ended up resulting in some wins. So thanks for letting us do this, and thanks for having us. Thank you.
And Coach Bennett with girls soccer.
Hey, hello, I'm Doug Bennett. I'm the assistant varsity JV coach. Coach Farley, the head coach, is not in town, so you guys get me. Then introduce all my seniors here. We got Sophia Tierney, Julia Black, Davis, Caroline Polona, Ali McCrisky, and Mackenzie Ludden. Thank God I remembered all their names after 4 years with them. So it's a little nervous I'd forget somebody being up here in front of a big crowd like this. So we had a pretty good year, I'd say. We were 18-0. We were conference champions, regional champions. We outscored our opponents 91-3. And that 91st goal came in the state championship game after 99 minutes and 59 seconds in the second overtime, winning us the Class A state championship. So it was quite a successful season for sure. But I tell everybody, every coach that comes to me, a friend of mine or parent or person in town comes to me and talk about how great our team is. I tell all of them these are better human beings than they are soccer players, and it's not even close. When I think about not only our varsity players, but our first team and JV team, we include a bunch of class officers, members of the student council, officers of many clubs, leadership roles all around school. Eventually, I'll be running home and with the Scarborough leader and reading honor roll, and I bet you 80 to 90% of the kids in our soccer program will be on there. Every single one of these seniors made the academic all-conference team, which I was so excited to announce, and I hear everybody else, and but I'm still super proud of them for sure. Julia Black here, she made the SMA All-Citizen team, which is given not only to great players who they also display great leadership and do amazing athletic accomplishments. If like 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now, we could track where our soccer players are, you would absolutely see that they do more important things than they ever accomplished on the soccer field. And I will also remind you again that we were 18-0, outscored our opponents 93-1, and we were Class A state champs. And I said they're better human beings than they are soccer players. But turning back to some of the soccer accomplishments, we had multiple players make all conference, all region, all state. We had our first ever All-American player. Ali and Julia made all New England. Ali became our program's all-time career points leader. Which has been a record for over 20 years, and she broke that, which is even more impressive considering she lost part of her sophomore year to COVID with a limited amount of games. The U.S. coaches poll had us ranked as #1 team in the Region 1, which is kind of northeastern part of the United States, and we were ranked 3rd nationally according to that. We were ranked 2nd, but we apparently fell in the final ranking, which I'm still mad about, but it's all right. Third nationally is pretty good. We'll take that. So that we had quite an amazing year. So, and it's due in large part to these leaders here who set the tone from day one. Like, and Coach Diaz mentioned it, it's a journey, right? It's not the end result that matters, but we started in June, and the journey we went through as a group was absolutely amazing, and it culminated in that game-winning state championship goal. I don't think any of us will ever forget that moment forever. So, thank you very much, and thank you. I guess that's it. So.
So hopefully you heard tonight a little bit about education-based athletics and not just wins and losses. And I think that that's an important goal of ours in our department. And I also want to take a moment to recognize all of our coaches. They just do a tremendous job, and they win a lot of league and local awards. I do want to recognize Coach Stoddard, our volleyball coach, who was named this year the National Federation of High Schools State Volleyball Coach of the Year, which also put her in the running for National Coach of the Year, which is just a tremendous honor. And we actually had 2 coaches, one this fall and another one in another season. So we're very fortunate. And like you heard some of the other coaches say, we have a really dedicated group of passionate coaches that put a lot of time and energy and heart into providing these programs for our kids. And so couldn't be more proud of our student athletes and our coaches. And I think we did have a tremendous fall season. Questions?
Thank you so much, Mike, and thank you for coming. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Thank you.
I'd like to say congratulations to everyone, especially Doug Bennett. Class of '87 rules.
I just want to say, first off, congratulations as well. This is certainly, I think, everybody loves the winning aspect of sports, and I would be remiss if I said we didn't. But what I am most proud of from this season is all of the stories we've heard about leadership and teams sportsmanship and integrity that have come off of the field. Multiple examples across multiple teams, but some of the few that stick out to me is watching, we've had a couple of heartbreaking losses this season across multiple sports, and the way that team members picked each other up and comforted each other and were there for each other. The boys soccer team, after losing their heartbreaking game, to sit and support the girls the entire time. It's pretty impressive, and it speaks volumes to the students we have here and the leadership skills they develop. And I think that ultimately comes from coaches, right? We talk a lot about the impact of parents with kids' lives, but coaches, the role that you play in kids' lives can't be underestimated either. They learn those leadership skills and those team sportsman traits from somebody, and it's not just parents and their friends, it's also from you. So thank you so very much for all that you do to shape and mold their lives as well. Is there anything else anybody wants to say? Congratulations again, and thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for dressing up in your suits. That is super awesome. Have a wonderful evening.
They'll bring the ties back.
I know.
Yeah.
Maybe so. I love it. I think
Ties,
this
I
is
gotta make a
awesome.
comeback.
Yeah. All right, agenda item 7.0 is the superintendent's report, so we'll turn it over to Jeff.
Boy, we know how to clear out a room.
Yeah.
Not bad. Ready for that superintendent's report? I'm gonna keep my my report brief. Just a couple of things. The first I just wanted to highlight is there's just been a ton of work behind the scenes, and not just behind the scenes, in public as well. We recently had a joint Board of Education and Town Council public workshop about our K-8 strategic project and the new primary school project, and where we are and where we need to go, and some of the progress that we've been making. So there, and part of that is there's been a very active subcommittee, part of the building committee, focused on communication and getting the word out and awareness about the project and the needs, our facilities needs as a district that dates back decades. And also trying to find ways not just to connect with, families and parents and active parts of the Scarborough Schools districts of active families, but also with members of the community who don't have school-age kids. And one of those things that we're focused on is a leader campaign, is really making sure that we're getting the message out, and the Scarborough Leader, which is certainly a lot of our residents who don't have kids in the school read on a regular basis. So I did have on my slide just a picture, a little sneak preview of a full page ad that's going to be in the next issue of the Leader. And the goal is to have either some communication or a letter written by a resident or a staff member, or different things every other week in the Leader, just to have a kind of a constant presence of the project, where we are, a timeline, reasons why, all those kind of things. So that's definitely one focus as part of our ongoing communication campaign. And then just a couple of things that are coming up before winter break is we do have our next building committee meeting, public meeting, which is on December 13th. And then also as part of, and this was mentioned, a little earlier in our workshop, having a joint session at the next Board of Education meeting and executive session to talk about where we are with the site selection process. So that's all coming up before the holiday break. And then the second piece is just, just a public awareness of our orientation workshops that we're doing and have completed, or session 2 of 2, which was today from 5:30 up until this meeting, which started at 7. And just to highlight for the public, what we've been working on, roles and responsibilities, overview of our central office leadership team and district leadership team, going over board meeting expectations and protocols, introducing our board committees and liaison roles, talking about and establishing a new board leadership chair and vice chair. And then this evening, at this evening's meeting, focusing on, again, roles and responsibilities for the board members, superintendent and leadership, as well as start talking about where we are currently with board goals, as well as establishing timelines for superintendent goals, which both of those two things influence, obviously, overall district goals. Talking about that, and then also establishing our routines for the new committee chair roles, which is a segue over to our chair's report on our new committee chair roles and members.
Yes, so that was a perfect segue.
Yeah, you like that?
Yeah, that was really good. To agenda item 8.0 is the chair's report. So as Jeff had mentioned, we've met tonight. We've discussed our committee roles, and we are ready to and excited to announce our new committees and who's serving on what. Our finance committee that oversees the fiscal management of the district and the board. This includes our operating budget. So a very, very important role. Very, very much involved with the day-to-day with Kate Bolton, our business office manager. So the chair of that committee will be Carolyn Gammon, and she will be joined by Jenna and Freyla. Our negotiations committee also, I'm going to say this repeatedly because all of our committees are so important, but the negotiations committee is the committee that oversees the bargaining between the board and then our collective bargaining units, our employee groups. And that is for the purpose of negotiating contracts, employment contracts. So Jenna Leong will chair that committee and will be joined by Freyla and John. Our policy review committee, this one is again, incredibly important. It is the committee that reviews our policies and recommends changes to our policies to the full board. So this is on an ongoing basis. So this committee is teed up to do a lot of work already this year. So there's a lot of policies ready on the docket to be reviewed. So Freyla will chair that committee along with Jillian and myself, and also Colby Shumway, our student representative, also sits on that committee. All right, our outreach and communication task team. This committee, again, very important. It's the committee that creates the communication strategy for the boards and really maintains that communication between the board and the district and the public. So that will be chaired by Jillian, and joining her will be John and Jenna. All right. Long range facilities planning. This is the committee that oversees the facilities, and this includes any needs, programmatic needs or building needs for the health and safety of the facilities and our students. They also review and recommend recommendations dependent upon those needs. So John will chair that committee and will be joined by Brian and Carolyn. Right, our curriculum committee works with our director of curriculum to really formulate the curriculum and assessment action plan, and really communicates that K through 12 curriculum guide. So that committee will be chaired by Brian, and Jenna and Carolyn will be joining him along with Yulia, our other student representative. All right, and we have two committees that are more of a long-term assignment because they are community member based. So the first is the building steering committee. So that is the committee responsible for that K through 8 strategic plan, including that new the strategy for the current buildings, excuse me, and the new K through 3 school building. The two board members that will sit on that are Jillian and Brian. And then the other one is our diversity, equity, and inclusion committee. So this is the committee that works to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion for all individuals within our district. So the two members that will sit on that committee are Freyla and Jillian. All right, and then in addition to our committee roles, we also act as a liaison to several groups within the district and within the state, quite frankly. So the first is the legislative liaison, and that will be Freyla this year. Our second is the vocational liaison. That will be Brian this year. Our teacher evaluation will be Carolyn. Our town council liaison will be Jillian. Our district emergency management team that used to have, that committee used to go by a different name, and it has been merged into one. That is going to be Brian this year. Our comprehensive needs assessment planning team will be Jenna. Dropout prevention will be John. Our pre-K task force will be Jillian, and then the transportation will be John as well. So right now, this is I'm explaining the committees as they sit. Later on under new business, you'll notice it's an action item. That is because we vote on our committee assignments, and then that's what makes them permanent. And for the public's information, if you are interested in attending any committee meetings, everybody is more than welcome to attend. So all committees will likely be up and running hopefully by January. And so any information about those committees can be found on our website. All right, so because we have just sat our committees, we don't have committee reports tonight, but we do have student reports. So agenda item 9.0 is the student representative report. So I'm going to turn this over to Colby.
All right, so at Blue Point, Lindsay and her puppet pals came to Blue Point, and she gave a puppet presentation to the students in the gym, and it looks like they had a lot of fun there. And then I just came up with this high school one on the spot. I have a picture on my laptop. It's kind of blurry. But Vex Robotics had a successful competition at John Baptist High School on the 19th of November. And you can see it on my computer, but here it is. Yeah, it's pretty blurry, but yeah, it looked like fun.
Sorry, I missed it. Did you say they won first place?
Or not
did you say-
sure.
What did you say?
They
I'm
had a
sorry.
successful competition.
Oh, a successful
Yeah.
competition. Sorry.
I just looked on the website. I had to make this, but yeah.
Gotcha. Well, very cool. All right. Are there any questions or comments for Colby? All right. Agenda item 10.0 is new business. 10.1 are board committee assignments. Do I have a motion to approve the board committee assignments as presented?
So moved.
Even from away.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right, can we call the roll, please? Call the vote, please?
Yep. Ms. Gammon,
Yes.
Mr. Kelleher,
Yes.
Ms. Young,
Yes.
Mrs. Lindstrom,
Yes.
Mr. Mayorino,
Yes.
Ms. Tarpinian,
Yes.
Ms. Trapani Huff,
Yes.
and Mr. Shumway.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Motion is approved. I'm going to bundle 10.2 and 10.3. They are the meeting minutes of the November 17th, 2022 workshop and business meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All right, can we call the vote, please?
Ms. Gammon,
Yes.
Mr. Kelleher,
Yes.
Ms. Young,
Yes.
Mrs. Lindstrom,
Yes.
Mr. Mayorino,
Yes.
Ms. Tarpinian,
Yes.
Ms. Trapani Huff,
Yes.
Mr. Shumway.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Thank you. Agenda item 10.0, or I'm sorry, 10.4 are appointments. 10.4.1 is a Scarborough High School varsity softball coach. Jeff?
Yep, so in your packet, we have, oh, there we go. In your packet, you have the spreadsheet outlining all the names for our winter coaches as well as softball coach and gym dandies instructor.
Right, so let's start with 10.4.1. Do I have a motion to approve the Scarborough High School varsity softball coach?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All right, can we call the vote, please?
Ms. Gammon,
Yes.
Mr. Kelleher,
Yes.
Ms. Young,
Yes.
Mrs. Lindstrom,
Yes.
Mr. Mayorino,
Yes.
Ms. Tarpinian,
Yes.
Ms. Trapani Huff,
Yes.
and Mr. Shumway.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Congratulations. Agenda item 10.4.2 is the Scarborough, do I have a motion to approve agenda item 10.4.2, the Scarborough High School winter coaches?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All right,
Ms. Gammon,
Yes.
Mr. Kelleher,
Yes.
Ms. Young,
Yes.
Mrs. Lindstrom,
yes.
Mr. Mayorino,
Yes.
Ms. Tarpinian,
Yes.
Ms. Trapani Huff,
Yes.
and Mr. Shumway.
Yes.
All right, motion is approved. Congratulations. Agenda item 10.4.3 is the Gym Dandies instructor. Do I have a motion to approve as
So
presented?
moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right,
Ms. Gammon,
Yes.
Mr. Kelleher,
Yes.
Ms. Young,
Yes.
Mrs. Lindstrom,
yes.
Mr. Mayorino,
Yes.
Ms. Tarpinian,
Yes.
Ms. Trapani Huff,
Yes.
and Mr. Shumway.
Yes.
All right, the motion is approved. Congratulations. All right, agenda item 11.0 is adjournment. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All right,
Ms. Gammon,
Yes.
Mr. Kelleher,
Yes.
Ms. Leong,
Yes.
Mrs. Lindstrom,
yes.
Mr. Mayorino,
Yes.
Ms. Tarpinian,
Yes.
Ms. Trapani Huff,
Yes.
and Mr. Shumway.
Yes.
All right, thank
evening.
you so much, everybody, and have a wonderful evening.